Hello everyone, welcome to Augment Tech. In this session, we will be learning about Introduction to Python. By the end of this session, you should be able to understand what is Python, history of Python, scope of Python, why prefer Python over other languages despite other languages still available in the market, what are the features of Python, applications of Python, what can I do with Python, why Python is so popular and why people use Python a lot these days, who uses Python, career opportunities with Python, and installing Python IDE. I'm excited to get started and I hope the same from you. Let's get started with what is Python. Python is an interpreted object oriented high level programming language. So let's first understand what interpreted means here. So here, interpreter is nothing but a translator that translates the instructions into machine level language so that the machine can understand. So machine understands the binary language, that is combination of zeros and ones. So what interpreter does is it will take the instructions written in some programming language, it will convert into machine level language so that the machine can understand. And once the machine generates the output, it is not possible for the humans or the programmers to understand the machine generated output. Again, that will be in the form of binary, in the form of zeros and ones, right? So what interpreter again does is it is going to convert that back into a high level language or into a human understandable format. So here interpreter is nothing but it is a translator that is going to convert the instructions into machine level language, and it converts the instructions line by line. So a real world example would be, let's say there are two people talking to each other. One of them only knows English, the other only knows French. How do you think they can communicate with each other? So they need a translator who can translate English to French and French to English, right? So same is here the use of interpreter. Now, when we say that interpreter converts the instructions line by line, let's say I have 10 instructions, out of which there is an error on fourth line, right? So line 1, 2, 3 would get converted line by line, and the execution will stop at line number 4 because there is an error. Now, from line number 5 to 10 will never get executed until and unless we go and debug the error present on line number 4, or we have to comment line number 4, right? So, with the use of interpreter, it's easy to locate and debug the errors. Now, Python is object oriented because it supports all the concepts of object oriented programming, right from the creation of classes, creation of objects. It supports all the four principles of object oriented programming like encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, method overriding, operator overloading, and so on. And also, Python is high level programming language. So, here, high level is nothing but human understandable format, or we can say that it is close or similar to English because English is a universally accepted language. So whatever instructions we are actually writing in English using the Python programming syntax. That is what high level programming language means. Now, next point is it has simple and easy to learn syntax. So the syntax of Python programming language is very easy, which makes easy for the programmers to understand and develop the code. When you compare Python with other programming languages like C, C++, Java, in other programming languages like C, C++, Java, each and every instruction is ended with a semicolon except for some decision making statements or for looping statements and all. So if you miss any semicolon there, you get a syntax error, right? So in Python here, we are nowhere going to use a semicolon. We are completely getting rid of semicolon. It means Python syntax is less prone to syntax error. Another major difference is that in other programming languages, in order to recognize a block of code, we make use of flower brackets or curly braces. But in Python, here instead we make use of indentation that is going to create a block for us. That is leaving four spaces to the end, right? So in other programming languages, when you have one single block, it's easy to understand where to open the bracket and where to close the bracket. But if you have multiple or nested blocks, then it becomes difficult to understand where to open and where to close. So again, we are getting rid of this flower brackets in Python by the use of indentation. That is only leaving the white spaces, it is going to create a block for us. So that is why Python syntax is very, very easy when compared to other programming languages. Next point is it supports modules and packages. So Python supports modules and packages. Modules here is nothing but a group of files, right? Or you can say modules contain runnable code. Modules can be user defined or built in. If you talk about user defined modules, so you can write Python code in any of the editor, let's say Notepad, simple Notepad, Notepad++, PyCharm, VS Code, Atom text editor. There are so many editors available. So if you write your Python code and then you save that Python code with a .py extension, that becomes your Python user defined module. All right. And it can contains variables, definition of functions, classes, and so on. Now coming to what built-in module is, Python has built-in modules that are already available, and they have some functions integrated. Examples would be math module, random module, regular expression module, datetime module, socket module, and the data science libraries like NumPy module, pandas, SciPy, and so on. So these are all built-in modules. Now coming to what are packages, packages are nothing but group of modules, and it will have an additional .py file wherein you can write your, or .init.py file wherein you can write your initialization code. So in PyCharm, you directly have an option of creating a package. Now Python is programming as well as scripting language. So to understand this, first let's define what is a program. So program is nothing but a set of instructions, or it is an executable piece of software that runs on a computer. And what is a script here? Script is nothing but a program only. So what is the use of scripting language? So scripting language uh, or script is used to automate the execution of task, or it is used to control another software application. So it means that all programming languages are not scripting languages, but all scripting languages are programming languages. A next important point is that it has high level build data structures with dynamic typing and dynamic binding. So data structures can be divided into primitive and non-primitive data structures. Primitive data structures are basic data structures like data types like integer, floating point values, boolean, complex, strings, and so on. In addition to this, Python has high-level built-in data structures known as strings, lists, tuples, sets, dictionaries. All of them are known as sequences or collections. So in primitive data structures, we have the int, float, boolean, and all. In non-primitive data structures, we have strings, arrays, trees, graphs, and so on. Now, what is dynamic typing? Dynamic typing here means in Python, you don't have to explicitly specify the data type of a variable that can be known at runtime. So in other programming languages, if we have to define a variable or declare a variable, let's say variable is 10. I want to, while value is 10 that I want to store in a variable A. So in other programming languages, we say int A equals 10 followed by semicolon. But in Python, we say just A equal to 10. We don't have to explicitly specify that the value 10 is of integer data type. That is known as dynamic typing. And dynamic binding is the memory allocation of a variable takes place at runtime. That is known as dynamic binding. Now let's see what is the history of Python. Let's put some light on the history of Python. So in early 90s, Python was invented by Guido van Rossum in Netherlands. Python was conceived in late 1980s and its implementation was started in December 1989. And whenever a programming language is invented and uh, a name will be given to it, the name will be coined. So whenever we talk about Python in front of non-technical person, they think we are talking about snake Python. This is not the obvious reason of naming Python as Python. It is because this person, Guido van Rossum, was very much fond of or a big fan of a famous TV show or a British comedy series known as Monty Python's Flying Circus. So the name Python is named after this TV show, Monty Python's Flying Circus. And it is open source since its existence. So open source is it is freely available. You just have to go to the official website, download and install the latest version from there. And even you can go and contribute to the Python community. You don't have to pay, you don't have to buy any license. That is known as open source. Now let's see what is the scope of Python. So Python is one of the fastest growing language. It is one of the booming and trending language of today's world. It has almost completed span of 30 years, and it is one of the best programming language for application development. Like we have so many social media applications that are using Python. Let's say we have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have WhatsApp, we have Netflix, we have Dropbox. So all of them are using Python in one or the other way. Then Python can also be used in web development. For this, Python has two flavors of web frameworks like Django and Flask. Out of which Django is the trending one because it has a lot of built-in functionalities and utilities and tools. In addition to this, web frameworks and front-end technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Bootstrap, and React, Python can be used to build beautiful websites. It can be used in game development. So Python has a module or a library called Pygame using which games can be built. It is used for system administration, scientific numeric computing using NumPy, SciPy modules. It can be used for automation testing, manual testing, geographical information system mapping, and so on. So these are again very basic things mentioned here. With Python, you can do a lot of things. You can go for web scraping, you can go for big data, you can go for building machine learning models and predicting them, you can go for data analysis, you can go for data visualization, you can go for computer graphics, and so on. Now, why prefer Python over other languages despite other languages still available in the market? So it will take very less time to develop because here the number of instructions get reduced, and Python programs are 3 to 5 times shorter programs. So it uses this block of code Python comparison to other language to display hello world. Here we have the first block for Python. So here we write print hello world just to display this hello world because hello world is a string, it is written in quotations. Alright, so you can see in one single line we can print hello world using Python. If you try writing the equivalent code in C, C++, Java, in C you first have to include the standard header files, input output header files, then int main function, then the flower brackets, then printf, inside which you will write hello world within quotations, then return 0, and then flower bracket. In C++, you again have to include the IO stream, that is input output stream, using namespace standard, then in int main function, and then inside the black brackets, you have to write your cout to display hello world, then return 0, then close. Same goes with Java. You first have to define your class, public class, hello world, then the void main function, then inside which you will display your hello world using the system.out.println output function, right? So in Python, it takes just one line of code to display hello world, whereas in C, C++, Java, it is almost taking 6 lines of code. So we can say that if we have an application written in Java, let's say in 10 pages, the same equivalent application you can write in Python in just 3 to 4 pages. That's why we say that Python programs are 3 to 5 times shorter programs. And this is the main reason why Python is preferred more over other languages. Now let's see what are the features of Python. So it's easy to code and read because of simplicity of syntax. Here we are getting rid of semicolons. Here we are getting rid of the flower brackets in order to recognize the block of code. Python program is very much expressive. So in the previous slide, we have seen that um, if you show that slide to, if you show this block of code to any non-technical person, he will understand that this particular line is going to print hello world. Whereas if you show this 3 blocks of code, they cannot understand because apart from hello world, it's having a lot of other piece of code that couldn't be understood. So that is why Python is very much expressive, and it is free and open source since its beginning or existence. You don't have to buy the license, you don't have to purchase, you just go to the official website, download and install the latest version of Python from there, and you can even contribute to the Python community. Then Python is portable. So here portability means it should be able to run on any of the operating system. Literal meaning of portable is to carry. So in terms of programming, it should be able to work or run on any of the operating system like Windows, Mac operating system, Unix, Linux, Ubuntu, provided the Python interpreter should be installed. Then high level is it is closer similar to English language or a human understandable format. Interpreted is conversion of instructions into machine level language line by line. Object oriented is supporting all the concepts of object oriented programming. Extensible is Python can be used with any other programming language. For example, if you want to build a website, so we will be using frameworks like Django and Flask at the back end. And in the front end, we have HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, and all these front end technologies. So here, Python is used as extensible language, or Python can be used with any other language, and Python itself is written in C language. Now, what is dynamic type here? Python is a type in for language. You don't have to explicitly specify the data type of a variable. It can be known at runtime. GUI programming here is graphical user interface programming. So in Python, we have a module or a library called Kinter, TKINTER, using which you can build uh, GUI desktop applications. Example, if you have to build a calculator which requires a lot of buttons, widgets, text boxes, and all buttons from 0 to 9, and operational buttons like plus, minus, multiplication, all those buttons. So that all this is actually included in a module called Kinter, using which you can build GUI desktop applications. Now let's see what are the applications of Python. So Python can be used in web and internet development. It can be used in desktop GUI applications, that is graphical user interface applications. It can be used for business applications, scientific numeric computing using analysis and visualization libraries like NumPy, Pandas, SciPy, Matplotlib, Seaborn, and so on. It can be used for software development applications. It can be used to build games, animations, 3D graphics. It can be used for network programming, where you can hit to a specific URL and download the HTML content of a web page. You can also download the image directly from the web page writing Python script. You can go for socket programming, where you can create clients and servers, establish TCP/IP connection or communication between them, so that the client and server can communicate with each other once the server is up and running. And you can also send email, making Gmail as SMTP server. Then desktop database access. So Python can be connected to any of the databases like MySQL, MongoDB, DynamoDB, Mongoose, PostgreSQL, provided the connector should be installed. For example, if I want to connect my Python to MySQL database, I first have to install the MySQL connector. Then I can write a Python script to create the database, the table inside the database. I can insert the records into the table. I can perform all the CRUD operations like creating the record, reading the record, updating the record, and deleting the records. Python can also be used in image processing applications, enterprise applications, 3D CAD applications, audio or video based applications, scientific numeric computing, console based applications, and so on. Now let's see what can I do with Python. So once you have learned Python, what we can do is the question. So you can go for system programming, doing some system admin work, configuring the systems, configuring the network, and so on. You can go for GUI programming. If you master the Kinter module, then you can build GUI applications like calculator application or really billing kind of application. And you can go for component integration. You can write a new Python application using some existing applications. Then you can go for internet scripting, web crawling, web scraping, using modules or packages like Scrapy, Beautiful Soap, and so on. You can go for database programming, connecting your Python script to any of the databases and then performing the correct operations. You can go for building games, downloading images, HTML content, doing socket programming, and so on. Again, there are a lot of things you can do once you learn Python. These are again the basic steps mentioned here. Now, why Python is so much popular and why people use Python? The first reason is it's freely available, it is open source. You can just go and download and install from the official website. Imagine what would happen if Python was paid. So nobody would have used it until and unless some big organizations would only afford it, right? Python is object oriented. Now, when I say Python is object oriented, does it mean that it is not procedure oriented? So when we say that Python is object oriented, it means that it is supporting the concepts of object oriented, and it is both procedure oriented, it is also object oriented, and it also supports functional programming. Python is portable. So imagine what would happen if Python was only able to work on Windows operating system or only able to run on Windows operating system. What about the other operating systems like Mac, Unix, Linux, Ubuntu? So again, that would be a problem. So that is why portability is something that it should be able to run on all the operating systems or hardware, provided the interpreter should be first installed. Then Python is very much powerful because it has got built-in data types and tools, dynamic typing. It has got n number of third-party utilities like numeric, NumPy, SciPy. It has got so many built-in modules or packages. It has oceans of modules and packages. As and when we start working, we just explode them. We can't even remember all these NumPy, Pandas, SciPy, Matplotlib, Seaborn. These are just famous ones. Apart from this, we have so many other available. As in when we start working, we just explore them. And then it has got automatic memory management here. So this concept is actually related to variables, where if there is any value which is not tagged by variable, it would be automatically garbage collected. Now let's see who uses Python. So here I've listed top companies using Python. First comes Google. So as Google is a search engine. So what we do on Google, we go to Google, we start writing our query. That query would be forwarded to the Google server. All the processing will be done and we get back the results in fraction of seconds. So this entire thing is actually written in Python. Google uses Python extensively in its web searching algorithm and some of the log analysis. Then we have this Intel, Cisco, HP, Qualcomm. These are the hardware companies using Python for hardware testing. Then we have IBM that uses Python for some of its factory tool applications. Then YouTube. So YouTube, what do we do on YouTube is people go to YouTube, they create their channels and they share or upload their videos. So Python's um, YouTube's video sharing service is actually written in Python. And apart from this companies, there are so many other companies using Python. We have Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Amazon, Uber, Spotify, NASA, Dropbox, Uber, Reddit, Netflix, and so on. So these companies are actually generating real revenue, meaning they are earning a lot of money using Python programming language in one or the other way. They are using Python as a main language or at least as a supporting language. Now let's have a look at the career opportunities with Python. So here I've listed some Python job profiles. So one who has knowledge in Python can be a software engineer, he can be a Python web developer. For him to be a Python web developer, he should be having the knowledge of Python web frameworks like Django or Flask. And in addition to this, he also need to have the knowledge of front-end technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Bootstrap, and React.js. He can be a research analyst. Mainly, he would be picking some topic or some model from or algorithm from machine learning, and then he can do research R&D on it. He can be a data analyst having the knowledge of data analysis and visualization libraries like NumPy, Pandas, SciPy, Matplotlib, Seaborn, and all. Also, he can be a data scientist. So for him to be a data scientist, he should have the knowledge of data analysis, visualization libraries, and also big data like HDFS, MapReduce, Spark Engine, Apache Spark Engine, or PySpark, and so on. And then he can be a software developer. He can build desktop GUI applications, or he can be a DevOps engineer working with the CI/CD pipeline implementation. He can be a machine learning engineer. So for him to be a machine learning engineer, the first step is he need to have the knowledge of um, analysis visualization libraries like NumPy, Pandas, SciPy, Matplotlib, Seaborn, and then the machine learning algorithms, supervised machine learning, unsupervised machine learning, reinforcement learning, then deep learning, neural networks, and so on. And then he can also be an AI engineer, that is artificial intelligence engineer. So that is something very high level that requires a lots and lots of knowledge and lots and lots of practical implementation in uh, machine learning and its disciplinaries, related disciplinaries. Now let's see installing Python IDE. So IDE here stands for Integrated Development Environment. So Python is pre-installed on most of Unix, Linux, and Mac operating systems. Python actually comes in two versions, that is 2x and 3x. 2x version is already depreciated. Now we have 3x version. So on this operating systems like Unix, Linux, Mac OS, 2x version is installed. You just have to write a command to upgrade it to 3x version. And for if you're a Windows operating system user, you can just download Python from this official website www.python.org. Go to downloads and download and install the latest version from there. Once installation is done, after installing, you go to the start menu and type Python, and then it should open a Python interpreter. And now let's try understanding the execution of the sample code. So once you're inside the Python interpreter, you can go and type in the command print parenthesis inside parenthesis hello world. Let's try understanding how this works. So here once you write your Python code, it's .py file. So it gets compiled into .pyc, that is bytecode, and then it is going to be interpreted by the Python virtual machine later on, and it generates the output for us. So here if you see, there are two steps. One is of compilation, the other is for interpretation, right? So now looking at this, Python is interpreted or compiled is the question, right? So actually Python is both compiled and interpreted at the system end, and it is only interpreted for the user end. Now let's see what is PyCharm IDE. So PyCharm can be downloaded from the official website, that is www.jetbrains.com. So PyCharm is an editor or an IDE that is integrated with all the functionalities and tools for Python. So it is a product of JetBrains. It comes in two flavors. One is community edition and the other is professional. Professional is paid one. So as a learner or beginner, you can opt for the community edition. So you can go and download the community edition and then you can install it. Now uh, once you have Python installed, you can just go to your start menu and start typing Python. So you see, let me say Python here, and I have this Python 3.11. So I'll open this Python. There we go. So this black screen is Python interpreter or Python shell. Okay. So here I can go and actually write something. Let's say if I have to say 2 plus 2 and hit enter, you see it gives me output as 4. Or I can simply do print hello world, because hello world is a string. I'm enclosing in a quotation. You can even enclose in double quotations as well. So you see the output is hello world. If I want, I can just go and put this in double quotations, and you see it still gives me the same output. All right. So here you can run one single line of instructions. It is not possible to run multiple lines of code, and you cannot modify the code which is already executed. So these are the two drawbacks of this um, interpreter or interactive mode of Python. So for this, you have to actually go to the script mode where you can run more than one line of code, and then you can modify the code as well. So this was about Python IDE, that is how to work on the Python shell directly. So for the rest of the course, we will be working on PyCharm IDE. Now let's hop to the quiz. Now let's get started with the quiz. Let's start with the question number one. Python is dash programming language. Let's hop to the options. Options are A, interpreted, B, object oriented, C, high level, D, all the above. Pause the video and try answering this question. Now let's have a look at the answer to this. The answer is D, all the above. So Python is interpreted, object-oriented, high-level programming language. Interpreted because it can convert the instructions line by line into machine-level language. Object-oriented because it supports all the concepts of object-oriented programming language. High-level because it is closer similar to English. Because English is a universally accepted language, or in other words, high level here means human understandable language. Now let's move to the next question. Question number two. Dash are the features of Python. Let's have a look at the options. Options are A, extensible, B, portable, C, both A and B, and D, procedure oriented. Pause the video and try answering this question. Now let's have a look at the answer to this. The answer to this is C, both A and B. So Python is extensible. It can be used with any other programming language, and it is portable. That is, it could be run on any of the operating systems like Windows, Unix, Linux, Ubuntu, and so on. Now let's move to the next question. Question number three. Python is invented by dash. Let's have a look at the options. A, James Gosling, B, Johannes Rospers, C, Dennis Ritchie, and D, Guido von Rossum. Pause the video and try answering the question. The answer to this is D, Guido von Rossum. So Python was invented by Guido von Rossum in 1989 in Netherlands. Now let's move to the next question. Question number four. Python was named after dash. Let's have a look at the options. Options are A, snake, B, toy, C, TV show, and D, all the above. Pause the video and try answering this question. Now let's have a look at the answer to this. The answer is C, TV show. So Python was named after a TV show known as Monty Python's Flying Circus because the inventor Guido von Rossum was a big fan of this British comedy TV series or TV show known as Monty Python's Flying Circus. Now this was all about the introduction to Python. That's all for this session. Hope you enjoyed this session. We'll see you in the next.